All right, welcome this week. I've got Prachi here. Naveen's out on vacation today, but we're going to talk about something. So, Prachi, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Prakash, for having me on your podcast. Hello, everyone. I am Prachi. I work with Prakash on the DX side of the house. I work at Pure Storage as a PMM. And we are here today to talk about I don't know, what are we here to talk about?
Marketing, right? So, Prachi runs marketing. So,
Yeah.
she's been a product marketer for most of her career,
Yeah,
I think.
like 10 years.
10
Yeah.
years. So, she's got some expertise here. I have no expertise in product marketing, so this should be fun. But I've always wondered, right? And the world, I think, has changed in terms of what is good product marketing? Like, what is the essence of what product marketers do? Like, how would you describe that?
I think it's not a difficult question. I also feel it's very different in different companies with how different people interpret it to be. But from how I have worked and what I understand, product marketing think of it as like, you're at the middle of, you're somewhere in between. There's product, there's engineering on one side, there's sales, BD, everything else on the other side. You are the bridge. You kind of want to understand what customers are saying, what's going out there in the field, what are the pain points. You try to bring that back in. You talk to product because they are building the roadmap and they're like, oh, this is what we think the customers want and this is the roadmap. And then you sort of bring both sets of opinion together and create a strategy to go to market. In the most, this is like the simplest I can kind of explain.
No, that's great. But,
But-
so there's an inbound element of bringing things in.
Yeah.
There's an outbound element of sending things out.
Absolutely, yes.
Right? Now let's focus on the outbound thing. You
Yeah.
get to decide. You can focus on building the perfect outbound thing, like making sure your message is great, testing it, going through iterations. Because in products, we have to decide, are we building something that's high quality that's going to take time? Are we building things that are high velocity and fast? The same thing, I think, applies to marketing. And, if you had to say, hey, I get to pick a strategy. I want to do fewer pieces of
Yeah.
messaging content, higher quality, or I need a large amount of velocity,
Yes.
right? What's a better form of marketing?
I think you asked me this while interviewing me.
I think this was in our interview question, yes.
Absolutely. I would say I would pick something called as the silence strategy. And by that, what I mean is, I'm not saying also I think, you've also worked with startups and you've been around in tech for a very long period of time. A lot of it is very anxiety driven. You want to be everywhere. You want your product to be everywhere, with every different market segment. That doesn't work all the time. What works, I think, is lesser thought leadership articles, lesser my product journey, my journey, and like lesser pieces of content, but more impactful. So I'll just give you an example. And there's just so many companies you can pick and choose. We can start with OpenAI, as a matter of fact, right? They spent more money in compute than doing marketing. Compared to when, Google came out with like Bard and they went just crazy. It was like marketing blitz and it felt very desperate. It felt like they're trying to prove a point. And I also feel when you think of product marketing or just marketing in general, it has to do a lot with the psyche of the customer or whoever is consuming your product or services. I feel that mystery element, the silence element works like really well. If people feel like, oh, they are exploring something rather than, oh, this is being sold to them, I think they kind of like that
Yeah, look,
element. a lot.
I won't disagree with that at all. I hate being sold to,
Yes.
right? Now, you brought up OpenAI, so I can't help but go here, right?
Okay.
AI.
Yeah.
So much of the content that is flooding the internet today is AI generated content. And we know that's happening in consumer. I think AI generated cats doing tasks around the house are probably one of the most blown up kind of things. I
Yeah.
think John Oliver recently did on his show something called AI Slop, which was the best things blowing up that are AI generated fakeware, right?
Yeah.
So in the world of AI, which is a reality we live in now,
Absolutely.
right? it's not only do I believe in the AI content, but now there's a lot more content out there.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the scenarios that has happened is there has been, with politicization, first responders in a hurricane
Absolutely.
were used to use images of people stranded as a way of figuring out who to rescue and what's left. And now there's more fake images in a hurricane of people that are getting politicized and blowing up. So we've lost the ability for first responders to use, like, it's not just the fake content, but the real content, the high value content is no longer relevant.
That's true.
Right? Because it's just, even if it was right, you'd question, is this a deep fake?
Absolutely. I think, to your point, we are questioning everything. And I feel the amount of AI generated content, like you said, not just like memes and, what you see in like pop culture right now, but even how companies are getting out with their content. Everything's written by ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. And how do you sort of differentiate whether this is high quality, this is like really something that will resonate vis-a-vis like.
But what I would argue is, like, if I look at the data, high quality doesn't work. The things that get the most pickup, right? We used to think MQLs and TQLs and engagement scores.
No.
The things that have the highest engagement and return on engagement are all the lowest value things.
I still think that's debatable.
Where? Like, show me one example in industry where, like, something that actually happened has been more, like, it's interesting. My wife sent me this on Facebook the other day. It was this picture saying, like, top unexplored hiking trail in California, like, we should go. And it was this, like, awesome image of this, like, nice green river going through a forest and whatever. And it's in Big Sur. Like, it's like National Head Trail Park in Big Sur. So I went to Google and I'm like, looked up the satellite images of National, and I'm like, yes, we should go. But the picture you sent me and the video was fake. And here's actually National Head. And it doesn't live up. Like, the real world can't be as good as the fake world. No value proposition we build in reality will ever be as good as something with no constraints in a fake world. So the message will always be more compelling if it's AI generated, if it's fake, and if it's low value. Because actually building those things is harder and more real. It's just like, the real world looks awesome. Big Sur is amazing.
I know it's amazing, but the hikes you're talking about is the one I also get on my Instagram and other places. And I'm like, where is this?
But now when we go, aren't we going to be disappointed?
Of course we'll be disappointed.
But, like, so again, that is, if the purpose of marketing, marketing is not sales. Right?
No,
marketing,
it's not. It's
marketing
to grab attention.
is to get eyeballs, get people in. So it wouldn't, if I was to run an experiment and say, random acts of marketing, no thought, just put as much velocity out there, statistically, something is likely to work and blow up just based on what goes viral with no thought.
Yeah, but that doesn't have, I don't think you can predict that. Like, the algorithm will also like go sideways because random things get viral in today's day and age.
100%.
And to your point, yes, it will disappoint you. So that's the whole thing. You can spam people, you can try out different types of content. Ultimately, when they try your product or they come onto your platform and they realize how shitty, how clunky it is, it's not going to work.
But we don't have a terrible platform. We actually have a good one.
We have a good platform. I'm just generally speaking.
But I agree with that, right? Yeah. So the question is this: like, if this is now getting philosophical and ethical and moral. Our competitors are using AI as a weapon. They have terrible products. We have good products.
Absolutely.
But if we tell the truth, it's never as shiny as the fake products. It's never as good is the mythical story. So this is like showing up in a war where the other guy
Yeah.
has a bazooka and we're going to show up with a knife. We're trying to play
Yeah.
a gentleman's game,
It's
right?
not
Saying
gentleman's
take
game.
10 steps
Yeah.
and turn around when the other guy's going to shoot you in 3.
So it's like you fake it till you make it.
Well, look, for the greater good,
Yeah.
should we not, and I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying let AI generate all the content.
Yeah.
But isn't the strategy of high velocity, random acts of marketing more effective? That's the question.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, maybe it is, right? But it's also like, look at what it is applicable to. Like, I don't think for pure it'll make sense. Maybe for, I don't know, some other consumer
Well, look,
brand.
you make a good point. Consumer and enterprise are two
Totally
two
different.
different
Yeah,
marketing.
they're different ballgames.
But if you take a look at, I will give you enterprise marketing,
yeah.
right? There are a number of companies
Yeah.
that I see in the enterprise space that build really great stories and underdeliver,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I remember in the early days, this was pre-AI, our product marketing strategy at Pure, we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of product marketers.
Yeah.
It was like one product marketer would do something and we'd send an email to Pure All saying, guys, like this, follow this, blast it out in your thing. And it made us look bigger than we are
Yeah.
by creating more noise
Yeah.
on it, right? So I think the idea, like I wish there was, like in my view, I don't use the internet anymore, actually. Like I stopped using the internet 3 years ago because I'm like, there's more incorrect information than correct. I've actually moved more to physical printed books. Till AI starts publishing books, then I don't know what I'm going to do, right? But I've actually stopped consuming digital content because I just think it's all garbage now. Like even if there's good things out there, I would question its validity, and now it's irrelevant to me because I trust nothing. I'm in a zero trust relationship with the internet.
And that's such a sad, like, I feel very sad about the fact that anything in print media for that matter, like I've been consuming like Wall Street Journal and a couple of other publications, and to your point, like there are so many parallel articles by independent like journalists, or you don't know who to trust, and everyone's serving their own agenda compared to being like neutral or giving me just like a neutral perspective. I think there's a lot more biases.
Yeah, look,
sort of like-
bias has always existed, right?
Yeah.
But the question I wonder is, okay, we're in enterprise.
Yeah.
There are vendors that are going ahead and doing it.
Yeah. So you're saying we play the same game?
Well, I'm asking, right? You're the product marketing expert here.
My take is, I believe you have to start with your product should, and I know Pure has incredible community fan following, right? We have like, we are way ahead, like even with Evergreen. What are the, like, competitors are just making up something. They don't have what we have. Like we have, it's data first. It's like, it's built from that foundation.
But look,
I get that.
if we just look at that, our customers love us because it's a taste test. Once you have it, you're like, I like it, I know it.
Absolutely. But those who don't,
But
I agree.
like the point of marketing is to bring us to people who
To
not.
new customers. I get it. Like net new customers. We're not talking about just like, expand and, all of those motions, but just net new. From that perspective also, I feel product should shine in a way that, like, have you heard Notion, have you used Notion? Or
Yeah.
They, even for their AI features, they didn't lead with, we are powered by GPT or we do this. They say, you can write easy, like you can write docs in the most easy way. If we go with a really simple value prop, we present enough product truth, I'm okay with velocity. I'm okay with like spamming different channels. That's fine. But I think it should still go in a way which is centered around like product truth.
Look, I agree with
rather
that.
than-
I don't want to be inauthentic.
But also just playing the velocity game just because Dell, HP, Nutanix, everyone else is just going in. Maybe they're doing a lot more on like LinkedIn or like just socials in general. I think there is also, I feel that eyeballs, they've become bankrupt. I also feel that there's a recession in attention span.
That's-
How much will people, to your point, you're also not consuming as much as you used to. So you're also like over spamming in the race of you and your competitor both going at it and creating just like these high velocity pieces. I don't know who's going to win the game.
So is the whole domain space dead? Like, or do we believe that MQLs and TQLs and like we should just move away from it and just let's kill it all? Like why spend the money on a dead space?
I would not spend money. If you were to tell me, hey, go ahead this tomorrow, I would change it to a lot more like PLG
Okay.
style approach.
So look, not everyone knows PLG. Why
Yeah,
don't you explain
product-led growth is what I meant.
Yeah. So if we're thinking product-led growth, then
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So in the new customers, it's try before you buy, right?
Yeah.
And in the installed base, it is you go like help
Yeah.
along the adoption and expansion journey.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of PLG.
Yeah.
I do believe that. What is the role of marketing in a PLG world?
It's very limited, to be very honest with you. In the PLG world, I can help identify what that customer journey will look like. Like, I will still have to produce some pieces of content. Like, there has to be some sort of assets that I need to produce, but I can help define if they land on the web page or they're coming to a particular blog or to a demo, and then they want to go, like you see it, you try it, and then you buy it. Marketing's role gets like very narrowed in that sense, because you're just helping maybe define the customer journey till a customer comes in and opts in for a trial or opts in to talk to your sales rep or somebody, right? Like that is the only net positive contribution I'll have. After that, maybe the way I can influence is if I understand UI UX and I can work with engineering and product in parallel, maybe help design that experience, which could be like your platform experience. But not every PMM can do it, or I don't know if they're interested in doing that. How that looks, and again, customer journeys can be very, very different for and you have to define, okay, this persona, this audience, this is how customer A will have this journey, customer B will have this journey, this is how I land, or this is the use case maybe we'll use to kind of like get them to the platform. I can decide then, hey, with product and engineering, hey, how does the UI UX look? Are there enough resources? Getting started, how many steps does it take for them to like configure, actually experience the service? I can look at metrics and say, day 0, day 1 till day 10, let's say if it's a 10-day trial that we are going, what is happening? What is the customer experiencing? Do we have enough telemetry there? I can do a lot of that. It's not really marketing work. Then you enter sort of that hazy area.
Well, so I think you're touching on an interesting point, because in a world where if we assume hypothetically that attention's fragmented, internet's poisoned, and the traditional role of content curation, MQL, TQL, hand raisers, let's say that whole thing's dead. If we just assume that, I don't think the role of product marketing is dead, because in essence, your job is to get interest, to nurture interest, and move things along. Now, I do think we have to redefine it, right? Like you said. And I think you started touching on the redefinition, because in the consumer world, or in the brand world at CPG companies, for example, like the marketing brand guys who used to do commercials, like back in the day, like there was a creative element to Mad Men, right? And it was all about, like you said, the psyche, the psychology of engagement. Those things exist and are needed in a PLG world. What is the psychology of how you use the product? Right? But I do think that your MQL and TQL is replaced by clickstream analysis and engagement analysis. Right? So in your product, and we do this, like how many seconds is people spending on this page, and how do you increase engagement, and what are they clicking on, and like what parts of the product are valuable, and what like that all happens. Like social media companies have that dialed in, right? And I think it comes with a psychological element, but part of it, like what happened when we moved from software to SaaS was the definition of it wasn't selling and using. Those things became the same, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you move from just SaaS to SaaS with PLG,
Yeah.
then the selling, nurturing, marketing process gets embedded in your product definition.
That's true.
So at that point, like today, I have different kinds of engineers.
Yeah.
I have, database engineers and full stack engineers and UX engineers and then UX designers. And I think the future product marketer is a product marketing engineer.
So
Because you're building into the experience of the product, right? I think that's a new domain space, and that could be the future of product marketing.
people sometimes also confuse PLG with growth marketing, like or a outbound PM or a growth PM would do those kind of things. Maybe you're right. Like it's just how currently it's being defined, and it could be like, yeah, the narrative could change around it. One more thing I'll just add is, how, sure, MQL and all of those could like be redundant and go away. But there is also an aspect of nurturing community, putting word out there, especially, if it's, and I'm not just confining it to Pure, but like any platform company,
Yeah, like how does,
Absolutely.
there's nurture when you're in product, but how do you discover? The
Exactly.
process of
So
discovery is changing.
It'll change, like I've used Reddit in my previous jobs.
I do as well.
Reddit is amazing. I feel the amount of buzz you can generate. Just go to like these forums and create.
But look, I used to use Reddit more than I do now, because now I'm starting to see AI bot people respond to threads.
Yeah.
Like
You'll have to sort of like obviously figure out like how to segregate that.
Yeah.
But I still feel Reddit is relevant in today's, and it may get replaced at some point. I don't know.
It's
but
funny.
at least-
Tago and I are both big gardeners, and we do have hobbies, and we look at things. And he's like, yeah, and he's like, I needed to learn how to make cheese, right? Because
Yeah.
he's interested in learning how to make cheese.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my answer is I always just look at Reddit, but everything before 2018. Right? You know what I mean? I just look at the timestamp.
Yeah,
And there was a
yeah.
point where it's like, there was like a lot of content and engagement and communities. Like I used to use Pinterest a lot.
I don't use Pinterest anymore.
Now I don't use it much anymore because I was like, oh God, is this a real woodworking example or a fake woodworking example?
Like even Discord for that matter.
Oh, yeah.
Discord started with like, their segment was just gamers. But then obviously it has grown into like this big community and that people can tap into.
So discovery, let's talk about
Yeah,
discovery. Because
yeah.
like, I like the idea of communities and I like the idea of people sharing experiences.
Yeah.
But
You don't know how much.
AI is already with fake people poisoning things.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting challenge on how we separate out that noise with like actual users. And for that, I think you have to like keep repeating and testing and see. Because I remember for the previous startup I used to work with, the majority people who would sign up through Reddit, we used to also use ODSC, Open Data Science Central, and a couple of other forums. They were all EDU. So we had a lot of like college kids and like, college
You
students.
could use domain names, like
Exactly.
validated domain
And then
names.
we had to sort of separate it out because we can pull telemetry and like, okay,
It's
how are
actually
they
a
doing it?
Good idea. Validated domain
So
names might
we
be a real
actually
answer.
created separate like sign up pages and we added a lot more filters because 80% of people coming to our platform were like college kids.
No, that's great. Like, I'm wondering now, just as an engineer, I'm like, let's say I'm in a college at a lab. Would the college, as part of my research, how hard is it for me to get a few .edu emails to run bots on? You know what I mean?
It's not
kinda
that difficult, yeah.
So, like, but I think you're hitting on something, which is like, how do you figure out real users?
Yeah.
And I think we figured this out in our identity center. We've blocked like non-company domain emails. Right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, if you're Gmail, we've blocked, you can't create a Gmail user
Absolutely, yeah.
for an enterprise. You have to use your enterprise domain. So, I think in the enterprise, you could do that, right? Like, you have to, like, you do validated, trusted domain names. And I think that'll help some. Like anything, this is a game of cat and mouse with
Yeah,
AI.
enterprise it does. But if you have had a product that has primarily been open source, so it has grown from that and gotten traction, that becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Like we would see 80% people drop off on day 2. Why? Because
They're trying
college
it.
kids are trying to use an MLOps platform.
Yeah.
You just want to see like, how
How
it
it
works,
works.
and then they're out of the door.
Yeah.
And you're not getting like, and then out of that 20%, maybe
Yeah.
1 or 2% will convert.
Yeah.
That was the problem. And so I think that identification problem will be there, but I think you can still segregate it by learning from your data, like what's happening. So if you see enough metrics or you have enough telemetry, you can still make some sense out of it and be like, I'll give an example. Like ODSC was a much better forum than Reddit. So Reddit got a lot more those threads were just
more
going
popular,
on,
yeah.
and it's so much more popular. But then ODSC had real like data scientists, ML engineers who were genuinely interested. So when they would come and sign up for a webinar, we knew, okay, that traction is real because they're coming there to learn and build something. So it's also how you segregate forums, I feel. So to your point, in discovery also, you should know where you can get more meaningful or like slightly more interested audience than just like everyone's just commenting for the heck of
Well,
it.
it's interesting, right? Because if we're trying to figure out discovery, I'm trying to think about my behaviors.
Yeah.
Like I'm most engaged when I'm either wanting to try something or learn something.
Yeah.
Those are my two primary engagement models. YouTube is my primary learning forum.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I need to replace this thing in my fridge. Someone's recorded a YouTube video about
Absolutely,
this,
yeah.
right? Let me go fix that. So a lot of my DIY stuff is there. And even like if I want to discover, like SunPower, which is the most evil solar company on the planet, sold all of their data to Sunstrong. So I can't do my own solar powering without paying another company for something I already bought. It's actually fairly evil. So, but there's a lot of code libraries and open source things where people hacked it with Raspberry Pi to build your own solar monitoring to deal with this, right? And there's a lot of like either training, YouTube videos, GitHub repos, like
GitHub
ways
is
to
amazing,
ways to deploy technology that I can just do. Even if I didn't have any, I have programming and technology skills, but even if I didn't have any, I could actually probably just follow the video and like download the repo, compile the repo, deploy the software, install it on a Raspberry Pi. It's for someone who has no technology experience, it'll explain how to do all of those things. Right? So I think that there is a forum in which people are willing to engage today, right? And it's either learning or trying. So I think those are high value forums. Can AI poison it by learning and trialing? I don't know, maybe.
So the last company I was advising, like I was working with the founder, and he was building this AI orchestration backend, like agentic. You can run it as a code, any of your agentic workflows or applications. There were like 2 companies. I was just researching, and we would go to a lot of these meetups and Luma events in the Bay and like do demos. There are companies who've literally gained VC traction or grown via just having the most popular GitHub discussion forum, which is super high quality. They would launch all their features there and ask people to like give feedback and try. And I'm sure that it is poisoned by AI bots. I'm not saying
Look, I know 3 massive valuations that were raised by fake users. You know what I mean? Like, so there's been some VCs holding some bags based on that.
Yeah, I'm not like, but I was trying to replicate like, oh, can I do this for this particular founder? And I'm like, there is some value to it. He was not okay to like, obviously put everything like, out there and make it open source because there's also a lot of proprietary IP that he had sort of built. But I just felt like they were having discussions, they had threads, they had launch threads, they had like release threads, and I think they were governing it in some way where, you can like sort of weed out.
High engagement community.
Absolutely. And I've seen so many of these database companies who've like come up like that. And so they were like GitHub superstars. And I'm like,
no,
okay,
I believe in
great.
that.
Like,
I believe
for
in
discovery,
like
it works.
super users and engagement communities. I just wonder, like, That all worked pre-agentic. Right? Now that we're moving to the world of agentic and bots, the level of pollution is going to become exponential. Because, and the problem is incentive.
Yeah.
The internet was fine
Yeah.
when Facebook was losing $1 billion a year.
Yeah.
When they discovered advertisement as the primary funding source,
Yeah.
that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Because users expect freemium,
That's true.
right?
Yeah.
If users aren't willing to pay for it, then the user are eyeball. Like the users of the product
Yeah.
are not your customers.
Yeah. 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 I get
You're
that. Yeah.
acquiring users to sell to your customers who are advertisers.
Yeah.
The business model, Facebook's customers are not you.
Yeah.
Their customer is advertisers.
Yes, absolutely.
And same with Google.
Yeah.
Their money comes from advertisers. So with AI, do people expect freemium? And is the same bias going to go into biasing the results of your queries? In ads, it's easy. It's like sponsored ad. It's an
Absolutely,
image.
yeah.
In search, you can kind of tell. But if you're just biasing the text results by someone who's paying for it, that is the only viable monetization
Yeah.
model that we know of right now.
Yeah.
If users expect freemium.
True. Yeah.
So-
No, I'm not disagreeing. I think that there are problems too.
Yeah.
There are problems in this day and age. Authenticity,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that's the biggest challenge, and also authentic users, like who's like just getting that. But I think we are still navigating. I don't know if anyone has the answer yet.
Yeah, I agree with
Like
that.
I'm sure there'll be some other communities that may come up, or some other forums that may pick up. I don't know if you did you hear. I don't know if you were on it, but did you Clubhouse? Do you know about it?
No.
Oh, so Clubhouse was this private community. It was invite only, and they were like chat rooms, so like voice
Alright.
chat, and then it became very popular in like PCs and like
Yeah.
tech people, wherein you could host a voice room, and then
Yeah.
you could do a couple of things, and it then gain traction. Obviously, I don't think Clubhouse exists anymore, or what happened. But yeah, that was something that became very exclusive, private only. So it's only via email, or if let's say you want to recommend someone, then they'll put it on a wait list, and then they will see. So just curating it for like authenticity and like the types of people or the kinds of people they wanted to be attending those. As soon as they opened it up, it became like really bad.
Yeah.
And it became like, oh, now anyone can come and sign up, because people wanted to do like webinars, or like not webinars, but just like audio shows, and like Jay Shetty would go and do his audio podcast. So I think that was a popular forum where I thought it was authentic for some time, until they like obviously the revenue model didn't support, and the
Well,
VC money was crashing or burning. So
Yeah, look, I think that's right. So why don't we like wrap up?
Yeah.
So authentic, like the sense I get is this: regardless of whether we do value or velocity,
Yeah.
I mean, I generally believe we should do both.
Yeah.
The future of product marketing
yeah,
requires creating some way of having authentic engagement,
absolutely.
right? Whether that's in product, PLG, in a
Yeah,
community, like.
yeah.
What would you want to like guide someone who's thinking about entering the product marketing domain? What is your final word to someone who's like entering the domain space?
Wow, that's a loaded question, but I'll try to answer
In
it.
30 seconds.
Yes, 30 seconds. Just keep an open mind, and I think just be creative. Keep an open mind and see how things are changing and adapt to it. And then maybe try to find, like you said, like be authentic, and try to find like those authentic mediums in a way you can influence, like bring actual value to product marketing. And that's not just creating assets and content and doing all of those things, but thinking of the bigger problem, the business problem, the customer problem that you're trying to solve. And yeah, I think you have to move ahead with times and be creative and keep learning and experiment. That's what I'll say.
All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.